Hello everyone. Um, for this final project, I created an application simulating the airport network using graph data structure, and they would consider um, like which flight, which route they need to take in order to have the least amount of time to travel from one place to another place. And application is going to assume that the time efficiency is equivalent to the distance efficiency. Uh, the the route, the flight that has the least distance is going to lead to the least amount of time to travel. And so how can graph will be used to simulate a network of airports? So each airport in the world is a vertex. A route from one airport to another airport is an edge. And graph theory can be used um, to answer some question related to airport network, and such as the one I just mentioned. Which kind of graph is used in this application? This is this application uses directed and weighted graph, and we use the gray circle distance as the weight, um, as the edge weight. I assume that the distance to travel from one the distance to travel from one airport to another airport that the flight need to take is equivalent to the gray circle distance. So what is gray circle distance? Gray circle distance is the smallest distance from one point to another point on a spherical surface, such as the red one in the slide. Two main important objects in the application. The first one is the airport class, a vertex, and it contains this attribute. The name of the airport, the IATA code, is a unique key for each airport to identify an airport. And this code will be used to determine the hash code and checking equals. Also, it stores country, longitude and latitude of the airport. Secondly, the second object is the route, and it contains the source airport, destination airport, and the gray circle distance between the two airports. And we are not going to assume that every two airports have a route, such as from Tân Sơn Nhất International Airport in Vietnam to St. Louis Airport. There's no air flight between the two airports. Thus, there is no route between the two airports. So we need to find a database of a way to know air, which two airports have a route between them. So how to obtain real-world data? Um, Fortunately, I found out a database available on the internet. It is created and maintained by OpenFlight, and I downloaded it to my computer in the form of CSV files. The two databases, the first one is the airport databases. It contains over 10,000 airports, but I only include around 6,000 airport because the other 4,000 doesn't have the IAT code. Um, the IAT code is null, so I exclude this airport from my application. So why I include latitude, longitude into the application? Because they are used to compute the reciprocal distance between the two airports. I will apply, my application will apply the Harvison formula, uses the airport latitude and longitude to compute the distance between the two airports. And the second database my application use is route database. This database allow me to know which allow my application to know which two airports have a route. And as you can see, this database hasn't been updated since 2014 June, so some information may be missing or may incorrect. More challenging, so I use the MySQL server in my in implementing my application. I loaded I using some SQL code to load the data into my SQL server, and then from Java program, I uses a library to connecting Java with my SQL server in order to select the data from my SQL server and import the data into Java application. And after the database has been created inside my SQL server, we will have a connection URL with which is used in the Java program to in order to connect to the SQL server, my SQL server. And so I need to import this library into my Java program. And also, in order to connect to the database, I need to have the username and password to access and a connection URL that I just mentioned to connect to this database, project CS300. And there are some Java code in order to connect the Java program with MySQL server using this URL and username and password. Also, the Java connector, it provides several methods to execute MySQL query inside the Java program, such as this one. It will call the SQL for data. And so go back to the main part, the application. In some application, there are several methods, like add some basic method for when dealing with graph, like add node, remove node, add an edge, remove an edge, check if an edge exists in the network, if a node exists in the network, and also this application can view the minimum spanning tree connecting all airports within a country, and the shortest distance to travel from one airport to another airport, and then I calculate distance between two airports. So for time saving, I will only demonstrate these two methods. The the seventh code is to view a minimum spanning tree connecting all airports within a country. For example, I want to view a spanning tree of airport within my country, Vietnam, and the origin to span is SGN, which is Funshan International Airport. And I'm going to click enter, and it show me the all the edges within the spanning tree, and I also can view the spanning tree. This is not what I created. I use a package called Jung, and I will mention it later. Um, this package allowed me to visualize the spanning tree. As you can see, this all the airport with in my country in Vietnam, and this is the route from one airport to another airport, and it also show the distance between the two airports. And as you can see, because this is a spanning tree, there is no loop within, like there's no loop, and all the node should be to connected to each other. The eight the farther shortest distance to travel from one airport to another airport. So I will the application will use the Dijkstra algorithm to fly, and here I will enter the source, the origin to star to find the shortest path from from this airport to Cap airport, and it said that the shortest distance to go from Tuyen International Airport to Cap Girardeau Regional Airport is this much. The unit is kilometer, and it show me 4 routes that I need to take in order to go from Tuyen International Airport to Cap Girardeau. So you can see of this application suggest me to from Tuyen International Airport in Vietnam. I need to take a flight to go to Beijing Capital International Airport in China, and then from the airport go to Chicago International Airport, and then go to San Luis, and then go to Cap Girardeau Regional Airport. And this is mm, this is like it makes sense, and I think my this algorithm i i I implement it in a correct way, because normally uh, I will have to travel in this way in order to get from my country airport to Cap Girardeau airport framework, in order to draw the graph like the previous one. And so Jung is a software library for the modeling, analysis, and visualization of data that can be represented as a graph or network. I think it's quite useful for me in order to visualize the graph that I created, um, so that I may guess if my application work, and also mention be I should I had better try my application with this small amount of data, so that I would know if my if I implement the algorithm in the correct way. But because I have loaded the big data, so um so this one is the limitation, and I need to improve for the next time. And some class file and packages used in my application. Uh, I just mentioned in my application, I use the airport class, route class, and also data class. This class will undertake the communication with MySQL server to load data from MySQL to the app, or to insert, update, delete database in MySQL database. And there is the main class called airport graph, and this class extends data and It includes all operations related to graph, such as minimum spanning tree, shortest path, add node, remove node, add edge, remove edge, and so on. And there's a pair class that I use to this those pair objects contain the effort and the minimum cost to reach from the source to the effort, and it implements comparable interface, and I will tell you later why this class has to implement comparable interface. And as I mentioned, I have to use Jung library imported into my Java program in order to visualize the graph. And also I use MySQL connector library to communicate with SQL server. And in this application, I use the three important data structure: hash set, hash map, priority queue. Hash set allow my application to look up with the time complexity big of one, uh, such as when I can keep track whether uh, an effort that has been visited or not by using hash set. The hash map to allow my application to store key value there with the lookup big of one to contain each entry will be a pair of key, which is an effort, and value, which is a hash set of route that coming off from the effort. The third also important data structure is the priority queue, which is a priority heap. It is used to implement the shortest path algorithm, because when I use the queue, I will get the one that have the shortest cost. That's why I implement the pair class implement the comparable interface, and the time complexity in order to dequeue the effort that has the smallest cost to explore for the shortest path algorithm is big O of log n, which is good. Talk a little bit about skill coding. My application encapsulate data by using access modifier like private, protected, because in this application I need to store the password in order to communicate with my SQL server. So password shouldn't be stored inside a string, because a string is immutable object, and it take quite a little bit time for Java collector, garbage collector to erase the password from the memory. And as so before this, because of this, I store the password inside an array and then immediately delete when not used. Also, classes that I think I will not override. I will make it final so that malicious attacker cannot override some method like hashcode and clone, uh, because I don't want like some unexpected event happen if hashcode is overridden or clone is overridden. And also, I only pass to the class method or return from class method to the driver primitive data type or immutable object. If the method returns a mutable object to the driver, it need to create a deep copy, such as this one. This one, it needs to create 2-layer deep copy before returning to the driver part. And that's it um for my presentation. Thank you for listening.